Hey there, my name is Caitlin, and today I'm bringing you my January wrap-up and my February TBR. I'm combining these because I didn't read that much in January outside of Diversathon, and I already did a wrap-up video for that, so my wrap-up is gonna be really quick, super fast. I didn't really stick to my January TBR that well. I pretty much in my January TBR video, I had already read 2 books, and those 2 books were the only ones that I read that were on my January TBR. I didn't do a very good job. So I'm gonna be like pushing those back pretty much into February. So at the beginning of January, I finished Ruin and Rising by Leigh Bardugo. But it was good that I finished that because it means that I can read Six of Crows, which I'll talk about a little bit later. After that, I read Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. This book was a thriller. It has a movie that came out recently, as I'm sure you've heard of. I'd say this book was okay. There wasn't really any character to root for because they were all sort of like shitty people, and the farther you get into the story you realize like kind of how shitty they are. But it was okay, I enjoyed it. Then after I read those books, Diversathon started, and I read 3 books during that, which I already talked about. But I'll just show you what books I read for that. I read If I Was Your Girl by Meredith Russo, which I talked about in my Diversathon wrap-up video. I will link it down below. I really liked this book. I really liked all the books that I read for Diversathon. And I read The Girl with 7 Names, a North Korean defector story by Hyun-soo Lee. And I also read Monstrous by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. This is a graphic novel, and I really loved it. I've been like thinking about it ever since. I want to reread it, and I'm kind of obsessed with it. And another book that I started in January but finished like the first or second day of February was Remnants by Jennifer Foner Wells. It's the sequel to Fluency, which I read in December. I loved this book. There were just things about this book that I just loved so much. The main character is a linguist, and she's hired to go onto this mission into space to potentially communicate with aliens, but the people who hired her don't think that there are any aliens there for her to communicate, but she's there to sort of like read any text that might be in the spaceship that they're searching, basically. In the second book, a bunch of other stuff has happened in the first book that I won't go into, but in the second book, she and some other people land on this planet that has aliens on it. And so she spends most of the book talking about like the cultural differences between humans and this other species. And I just love that so much. It's a dual perspective, so it's Dr. Jane Holloway's perspective, the linguist, and then this other guy, Alan, who kind of annoys me. It's their perspectives, and his perspective is a lot different because he's not as like open to this other culture. He's more like closed off, and he's kind of like, why are they doing this? This is weird. But then Jane is like, oh, I can understand why they might do this. This is a difference in our cultures. I should be more careful with what I'm doing so that they don't misinterpret what I'm doing. And I just love that so much. And another really interesting thing about this book is there's a character who has not reached puberty yet. Their name is Tenor. And in this alien culture, the way that gender works there is that you don't have a gender before you hit puberty, and then you decide what gender you are at puberty. So this child has gender-neutral pronouns. It's like Ead. I don't know how to say it, but it's like Ead and something else. Jane is just like, okay, yes, of course, this makes sense. This is fine, which is great, and I love that. So it's just a really, really interesting book. It gets pretty action-packed towards the end, but I personally really liked the whole like middle chunk where it's just talking about like their cultural differences and introducing some new characters, and I love it. But anyway, let's get to the rest of my February TBR. I actually already read another book in February, which I'm really excited about. I loved it. And that book was Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I've been wanting to read this book. This is the whole reason that I read the Grisha trilogy, which I did but this was so much better. I honestly loved it. I gave it 5 stars. It's like a super beautiful book too. It's black. You've probably seen this everywhere and heard about it a million times, just like I have. I'm actually gonna make a whole video about this, so I'm pretty excited. I have a lot to say about the characters. Jesper is my favorite character. Is it Jesper or Jasper? He's my favorite. I love it. And honestly, since I read this, I kind of want to read Crooked Kingdom next. That wasn't originally going to be on my February TBR, but I might end up reading it because yes. Also this month I'm going to read 3 by Hannah Moskowitz, which I said I was going to read last month, but I'm going to read it this month. But I'm going to read it this month. It's some sort of story about a polyamorous relationship. That's really all I know. I'm pretty excited about it. Yes. Also, that reminds me of another thing about remnants, which I was talking about a little while ago. Another interesting thing about remnants and this alien culture that we're learning about in this book is that they don't have like monogamous, like 2-person relationships. They form circles. They form these polyamorous relationships where they're all like romantically linked in a circle, and it's awesome. It's cool. I love it. Also, I started rereading City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. Basically, I really want to know if I still like this book or not. It's still really popular, and since she's like expanding the world and writing more books in this world, I want to finish reading the Mortal Instruments series, which I only ever read the first 3 books of, and so I'm just rereading the first 3 because I read it like 10 years ago. That's a long time. Also this month I really want to read Mistborn or The Final Empire or whatever this is supposed to be by Brandon Sanderson. I got this book for Christmas and I've been really wanting to read it, but I haven't. I don't know, but this month I'm going to read this. Determined. It's going to happen. I'm really excited. I hear really good things. It's supposed to be amazing. So it's about time that I read this, I think. This month I also want to try to read Scarlet by Marissa Meyer. This is the sequel to Cinder, which I read like 5 years ago probably. I actually started reading Scarlet right after that, but I don't remember why I didn't finish it. I don't know how much of it I read. I don't remember. I hope that I can remember the plot of Cinder enough to be able to like easily continue this, but I think it follows a new character, but I think that Cinder is in the book. I don't know. This month I also want to read Graceling by Kristen Kishore. This is a book that I apparently have owned forever and it's just been in my basement and I forgot that I had it and I've never read it, so I'm going to read this. This month is gonna be like a fantasy month for me. Aside from the book 3 by Hannah Moskowitz, which is not fantasy. It'll be a nice like break of the fantasy, but other than that I'm gonna read so much fantasy. I'm just in a hardcore fantasy mood. I want all the fantasy. Give it to me now. I'm really excited about all the fantasy that I'm gonna read this month. I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited that I finally read Six of Crows. I loved it. I'm really excited. I'm in a great mood. I want to read all the things right now. Okay. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.